Time is now 6:30 on July 22nd. I'll call this meeting to order. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Rear is not present. Commissioner Alexander.
Present.
Commissioner Bodnar.
Present.
Commissioner Swain is also not present, and Commissioner Atkins, I'm here. Thank you all for being here and joining us tonight, and everybody listening online. The first thing we're going to do is I'll make a motion to approve the meeting agenda for this evening. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I'll call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Moving on to the last month's meeting agenda, we will call a vote on last month's meeting agenda to approve. Any comments on that? Okay. So we'll do a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that's 3-5.
Did you do a motion and have it seconded?
I believe so.
Okay.
No, we.
Did I not second on that one? Okay. All right, let me do that one again. So I'll make a motion to approve last month's meeting agenda and minutes.
Okay,
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
thank you.
Okay. Now we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, 3-5. So before we get started, we'll do any comments from the planning commissioners? Any comments from anyone?
We'll have this number on the way this time.
Okay. So we'll move on to public comments. I'll now open this period for public comments. Please reserve your comments related to the specific agenda items when I call for comments on that item. Comments to the planning commission should be limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. Groups wishing to address an issue select 1 or 2 spokespersons. The time allowed for all issues shall not exceed a total of 15 minutes. Issues raised at the time are generally referenced to the secretary for review. Responses will be provided at a later date. So I will now make a motion to open for public comments. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Any public comments? Okay. No comments, so I will make a motion to close this portion, the public comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll now vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. That's 3-5. So old business, we don't have any old business, so we'll move on to new business. The first item for new business is a change in conditions application to modify previous zoning condition 2 to allow medical and dental office as a use at 2795 Hamilton Mill Road. Staff, I'll ask you to present your staff analysis and recommendations.
Hey, good evening. It's great to be here tonight for your first meeting with agenda items. This one should be very straightforward. As we stated in the staff report, Gwinnett County conditioned this to be retail uses and commercial uses, and the applicant has requested to have a medical use in this development. And so as a result, we are here to amend the conditions that were previously approved by Gwinnett County so we can accommodate the medical and dental office use. Staff did recommend approval on this request. We did have 3 conditions applied, and the first one would be that the other conditions approved by Gwinnett County will remain in effect. The dental and medical uses should be limited to outpatient office-based services. And then we got a little more specific and recommended prohibitions from emergency medical, urgent centers, surgical centers, dialysis, inpatient or overnight care facilities, mental health or substance abuse treatment centers, and medical laboratories with on-site diagnostic equipment that generates hazardous waste. But overall, we saw that there was no reason we should not permit just a standard medical or dental office use on the site.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just got questions, I was going through the packet, and if you don't have the, do they have elevations for this yet? I didn't see them.
I don't believe elevations were submitted
I
as
saw a
part
site
of,
plan.
or
So you didn't see
there
it?
was a site plan,
Just
but
a
I
site
don't
plan.
think, they weren't required or submitted as part
Okay,
of.
I was just
the-
curious, as I was looking for them, and, I mean, I know where the site is, but,
Yeah,
you know.
no, they will be, subject to the architectural standards.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so I'll now make a motion to open the public comment. Do I get a second?
Second.
I'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we are now open to public comment. Anyone have anything to say?
Do.
Okay, great, welcome.
Thank
Good evening.
you. Happy to be here. I feel honored to be a part of a first for the city of Mulberry.
This is the first for a lot of us.
Well, good evening. My name is Gabrielle Shaler. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. My address is 1550 North Brown Road, Suite 125 in Lawrenceville. Applicant is pleased with staff's recommendation and approval. We do have one small change to the third condition that they added. They, like staff said, they've added 3 conditions. And the applicant would just request that we don't restrict the uses of emergency medical centers and urgent care clinics. They're agreeable that they will not have any beds in the medical offices or dental offices, but they just don't wanna restrict the applicant, from doing those, uses in case, you know, market conditions change and they need a little bit more flexibility, in what they're able to put in the building. So I'll continue on, so that would just be the one change we would ask. So I just wanna emphasize, what staff said, that this should be pretty straightforward. The applicant's request tonight is all about amending one condition, condition number 2, that Gwinnett County put on the original zoning, to make it explicitly clear that medical and dental offices are allowed by right on the property. The proposed development is compatible with surrounding uses and the City of Mulberry's new comprehensive plan. There are currently medical and commercial uses along Hamilton Mill Road. As we all know, there's 2 urgent care facilities, I believe, currently out there. And the subject property does have self-storage facility in the rear that the applicant does own and operate. They just opened up. And the comprehensive plan designates this property within the workplace center light character area, which specifically includes medical offices in its list of primary uses that it will encourage in this area. The proposed development will provide a professional and clean use for neighbors to enjoy, and will also provide office-based jobs for the local residents. Those are 2 goals explicitly stated in the comprehensive plan. This is the type of commercial development that Mulberry wants. In the economic development policy goals and strategies section of the comprehensive plan, an explicit economic development goal is to encourage development of medical office as an alternative to retail or warehouse-driven economic growth in this area. Medical and dental offices are not something the city wants to restrict. They are professional, resident-focused, and neighborhood service-oriented. And in conclusion, the applicant respectfully requests that you recommend approval of the application with staff's recommended conditions plus applicant's one change to condition 3, just to strike those first 2 uses, the emergency medical centers and urgent care clinics, just to give the applicant that additional flexibility that it needs to operate successful businesses in this area. And I will reserve the remainder of my time for questions and rebuttal.
Okay.
And I have a copy of our revised conditions that I handed you. Thank you.
So just a quick question. I've heard, and honestly, this all sounds good to me personally. So in other words, as somebody who's had multiple surgeries, so I'm assuming this is outpatient surgery such as say somebody has an impacted tooth, they gotta have emergency surgery or
Right,
something like that.
right. They're not spending the
Yeah.
night, but they can have their procedure done and they can go home.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
You know, I guess my question when we're talking about adjusting that, you know, do we have any idea what the traffic count would be, you know, between one or the other? Cause I mean, I'm assuming staff's recommending this for a reason, and that reason is probably traffic count, things like that. So do we know, what that would be?
So I don't know off the top of my head what the difference would be, but really what the purpose of this application is just to make clear what's allowed on this property. So in my letter of intent, I kind of went into detail about what service commercial means. So C2 in Gwinnett County permits retail and service commercial uses. And then it includes a table, and I actually have printed out the exhibit that I can show you of what the Gwinnett County Code looks like. I obviously know we're in the city of Mulberry, but I think that this will help illustrate what happened back in 2022 so we can properly apply it to the city of Mulberry. And so, in this table, and I'm happy to share it, it says general commercial uses that are allowed, and then it has a table of what commercial zoning districts they have. So if you go down to C2 and you go down, okay, business, medical, or professional offices not included below, it says permitted, business, medical, or professional offices. And then it says with the exception, so it accepts certain uses, and medical and dental are not excluded, but they're pretty general terms. So then you go to the definitions of the code when you're like, okay, I wanna do a medical, I wanna do an urgent care facility, I wanna do a dentist's office. So I go and I'm like, okay, where are my definitions? Service commercial isn't a defined term in Gwinnett County's code, nor is it a defined term in the city of Mulberry's code. So then you have to go to, okay, what happens in this code when I can't find a definition? And in Mulberry and Gwinnett County, you have to look to this book, and it's called Illustrated Book of Development Definitions, and it's land use people use them. I have one in my office. And so the definition of service commercial just says that it's, so retail would be the sale of goods, and service commercial would be the provision of services to the public. So medical and dental office are both a provision of services. And so those are umbrella terms, and then you get down in the niche area and you're like, okay, so all these other uses, like when you get into specifics of what a medical office is, and those are permitted in C2, but we wanna make specifically clear what's allowed. And what we're asking you tonight with this condition that we've revised is to not overly restrict this area. So we're gonna permit medical and dental offices. In our condition 2, it'll say commercial, service commercial, to be understood to include medical and dentist. And then City of Mulberry staff has then gone back and added 3 additional conditions. And we're happy with those conditions, we just don't wanna continue on the level of restricting this property because it makes it hard to do business there. It makes it hard to put tenants in this building. And we want this property to be successful, and the City of Mulberry want to promote economic growth and, you know, grow that tax base. And so that's why we're asking just take those 2 off, just to not overly restrict the owner of the property's ability to get tenants in this building, which is necessary.
so I got one more question, and again, most doctor's offices, dentist offices are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 operations. With the exception, some of them are, especially the bigger commercial ones, are open on weekends. I'm guessing that, you know, some of these emergency facilities are 24/7. Do we have any idea what kind of hour, is there anything about that in here?
So there's not specific tenants set up, which is why we need that flexibility.
Okay,
And I haven't spoken with my client about how they would feel about an hour restriction. I would assume that if we are trying to include the emergency services, urgent care, you know, we want the City of Mulberry residents to be able to have
Yeah,
access.
well, agreed.
Yeah, so, because they wanna serve the neighbors, they wanna respond to the need, and so again, we don't wanna overly restrict
Yeah.
this
Like I said, it's just a question,
Yeah,
again, if
yeah.
somebody has an emergency situation at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
you don't wanna restrict somebody from, and I don't think you're gonna have 25, 50 people in that corner. I was just
Right.
wondering if there was any idea, if
Yeah.
that's what they were planning.
No, we have it included in our application.
Okay, just, again, it was just a curiosity
Yeah,
question.
no, good, thank you.
No more questions, ma'am?
No, I think I've heard everything I need to hear, but
Okay, well, thank you.
Anyone else comments for? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And do we have any comments against? Okay. So I will make a motion to close the public comments section. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
I,
All those opposed? All right, 3-5. So, commissioners' comments?
Open this through a motion.
So, I will make a motion to recommend approval.
Well, or you can have discussion and just make a motion to open the discussion period.
So just do it that, okay.
Yeah.
Do it that way. So I will, make a motion to open for, planning commission comments. Do I have a second?
second.
All right, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Comments?
This is for us, right?
Yes.
I don't see any problem with it. I mean, Hamilton Mill Road's got a lot of, you said, we've already got a ton of, commercial stores, everything. I think if we can get more office buildings, especially medical stuff, I think that's a good thing for us. I mean, I've got one doctor that's right down the street from me. Actually, I had to go see the other day, so I'm pretty familiar with the area. I mean, office buildings don't cause any problems, especially if they're built nice. I mean, they're typically low traffic. I mean, so for me, it's, I think it's a good idea.
So, I guess the only comment to the city, the staff is just, I think a lot of these I agree on, the dialysis center and overnight medical, things like that. Is there a reason we specifically included emergency, medical and urgent?
We included them just because they tend to be a more intensive medical use than your standard, 9 to 5 type office for a medical or dental. And so that was, our thought as we crafted it. Having an overnight emergency medical center or urgent care would be, something you could definitely strike and approve, or you could limit it by hours of operation. We were just looking at what are more intensive medical uses.
Right. And is everything else, like the setbacks, just when I look at the site plan and all that, is all the setbacks and all that was approved by the county, does that fall in line with our setbacks and everything too? I mean, you know it's already approved.
They should, yes. We have not conducted a compliance review for the application. Well, it has gone through some review for the LDP. Sorry, I haven't done that. I don't believe there was an issue with
Okay.
that. It would have been noted as part of the LDP comments, and I think it was mainly just this condition that we
Okay.
interpreted.
Thank you.
I mean, I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me when you include the emergency medical center and urgent care is, the hours of operation. Is it something that's open 24/7, or is it just, till 9 p.m. at night or something like that? I mean, just to, I'm not saying that wouldn't be a good fit for this use and everything, and I like the fact that this property is being utilized some sort of medical or dental or something like that, as opposed to just another fast food restaurant sitting out there that we don't all need. So, I think for me, that's the, I'd like to see a little bit more information on that, but as far as what kind of hours of operation and things of that nature.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's just one more, I mean, again, to bring up that point too, I mean, are we gonna have ambulances come in and out, or is it gonna be, is it gonna be that kind of urgent care? I know right there by the Walmart, there is another urgent care, but I think it's a walk-in. I don't think they're necessarily taking emergency type, big, like, there's not ambulances or paramedics running in and out of there. So I think that would be another concern.
Okay.
Yep, so, what we could do from a staff perspective, depending on your vote this evening, we could, look at providing some recommendations to city council that kind of address some of those questions, whether it's, just being more explicit. You could recommend some hours of operation, you could limit it so that it is walk-in only, and no ambulance service, those are within your power as you make the motion, and
I mean, I'm not necessarily for or against that. Again, if somebody's got an issue, it's a life-threatening situation, I mean, things need to be taken care of. Again, that's my personal opinion. It's also up to the other two commissioners also.
I mean, certainly, it doesn't sound like emergency, I don't know, maybe I'm being naive, but emergency medical center, it's not like it's a full-blown hospital there. So, if somebody's in dire need, they're most likely to go and dial 911. An ambulance is gonna come to their location, and odds are that's not gonna be the first place. They're gonna go to the northeast shore, to them, gonna go to medical or something like that. So, I don't know that, that we have that to worry about so much. Maybe we do, I don't know. Like I said, depends on, I guess the definition of what is an emergency medical center in this term, what does that entail? Well, I think we all know what urgent care clinics are. Those are pretty solid. There's one here, there's one over there. Those are, I think, a little bit more cut and dry, so to speak.
Emergency medical centers would typically include those more life-threatening situations because it's an emergency response.
Yeah, I don't foresee people in major car accidents going there. I think it's gonna be
Well,
something,
you're
maybe
looking
somebody
at,
gets hit by a dog or something like that.
you're looking at a one-story building, with, well, I think it's 18,000 square feet. So, that's a good-sized building, but, you put a couple of medical, a couple of dental, maybe urgent care. I don't know how much room you've got left for an emergency center, but again, if that's the only thing that goes in there is emergency medical center, then you've all of a sudden got a decent-sized medical center.
That's a good point.
So I don't know, I think there's some thought to be put into that as well.
Yeah, I think we could probably make a motion to accept their amendment and then have them maybe work with staff to come up with some potential language for hours for, I think let's do it. Any other questions?
Nothing.
All right, thank you.
Okay, do you want to recommend potentially some hours that you would feel comfortable with, and then that would give us a place to begin, and then we can have that conversation and present it to city council?
Yeah, I think so. I would think 9 o'clock, or, what's the standard hours for?
A lot of them close at 6 or 7, I think. I'm not even opposed to it being a little bit later,
That's what I was getting
than
at.
maybe 8 or 9 p.m.,
Yeah, most stores
Just-
open 9 o'clock on average.
Yeah,
agree.
so and I think that,
And Saturday hours would be fine with me also. Like I said, there is some dental and doctor's offices that are open on the weekends. I don't know how much on Sundays so much, but
well, I think we've all been to urgent care, so like I said, I'm not trying to
yeah.
All right,
limit when they can,
so I think I know.
okay.
We're good?
Yeah.
All right, so I will make a motion to close the planning commission, comment section. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll now vote. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? All right, so I will make a motion to recommend approval to mayor and council, with the amendment by the applicant, but with adding in there that, work with the staff in coming up with hours, potentially 9 o'clock. shut off time. Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
All right, we will now take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, 3-5. Thank you very much.
Work well together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is an ordinance to adopt revisions to short-term rental requirements of the city's Unified Development Code. I will now ask staff to present staff analysis and recommendations.
Yes, good evening. So as part of the amendments we're doing to the Unified Development Code as we begin working in it a little further, one of the things that has come up in discussions with City Council in the day-to-day operations is how many short-term rentals are operating within the city, and then also looking at refining what the existing ordinance was in the code just a little further. Part of this is because short-term rentals can have the hotel motel tax levied against them. So the city recently had the first read on a hotel motel tax that will go before City Council for the second read and public hearing in August. But to kind of coincide with that, we're looking at strengthening the short-term rental ordinance. The existing ones, there's 4 existing short-term rentals. So short-term rentals are limited use that are allowed with these supplemental regulations currently in the city. And so what we've done is recommended 4 additional requirements that kind of give the city just a little more oversight. We limit it to 1 short-term rental on each parcel. They have to comply with applicable life safety standards. They do have to register with the city. And so that would be submitting an application to city staff for a short-term rental, showing proof of ownership or that they have a lease to do so. This would be valid for a period of 12 months, and then they would submit a renewal. So it operates similar to a business license in essence. And that's just a way that the city can monitor it, make sure that we're aware if we're collecting taxes appropriately, if they're being remitted. And then it also just kind of goes over, that it can't be transferred to a different person. They'd have to reapply as a new applicant. And then that we can, either suspend or revoke the license if they are not, complying with regulations. And then there's an additional requirement that if it's a corporate entity, they also do need to get a business license. So an individual property owner, homeowner would not have to have a business license, but they would have to register with the city. If you are a corporation, an LLC, a partnership, or any sort of legal business structure, you would then have to take the additional step of getting a business license. So that just kind of summarizes what the intent is. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have. I think as you discuss and consider this ordinance, you could think about, if it's applicable for the city, just kind of short-term rentals in general, if the structure staff has proposed seems to do a sufficient job in regulating it, and kind of, provide your thoughts in the form of a recommendation to mayor and council.
Questions?
No questions, but I just kind of got some comments. I mean,
Let's hold that to discussion time and we can open the public hearing.
okay.
All right, so I will now make a motion to open to public comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let's vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Anyone with public comments? so no public comments, so I will now make a motion to close the public comments.
Did you do in opposition to? Did I miss that while I was writing?
No, do I need to, I guess, do both
Yeah,
sides?
do both sides.
Okay. So anyone opposed to it? All right, no opposition?
Yeah.
So now I'll make a motion to close the public comments section. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let's vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 3 to 5. So I will now make a motion to open to the council, the planning commission comments. Do I have a second? Second. We'll now vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so we're now open to planning commission comments.
I'll go first. As I was gonna say, here recently, versus using a hotel, my family and I, we've started using Airbnbs or VRBOs. And we've had a lot of good experience with them. I mean, sometimes they're very comparable in price, more privacy, nicer amenities. I guess my main concern would be, you do hear horror stories about some of these places too. So it's just like any type of landlord, you got good ones, you got bad ones. Is there gonna be anything in place like where, say if somebody's constantly renting a property out, it's turned into a party house every weekend? Are we gonna be able to put some kind of provisions in where we're just able to shut that down? Like a 3 strikes rule, you're done, Bob.
So we do have, item E under G does state that failure to comply with applicable regulations,
What page is that on?
30 or 29. It says failure to comply with applicable regulations, including but not limited to occupancy, safety, noise, or parking provisions may result in the suspension or revocation of the short-term rental license. So that provides the city with enforcement power. You could also, if you wanted to get a little more specific, you could potentially recommend another standard in there that special events or, things like that cannot occur within a short-term rental unless they comply with the special events ordinance. Or, you can make it a little more explicit that it's to be used as a residence and not as a place to have a venue and events. So that's something that you could certainly do. As far as the violations, it would follow your typical code enforcement process where if we received a notification or the city became aware of it, we would reach out to the property owner, let them know they're in violation and, work towards compliance. And then if there is a failure to comply, we would then move to a citation.
The only way, again, as far as like special events, say if somebody was doing something like that, like maybe they're holding smoke wedding ceremonies, I think they would all be applicable to how big the property is. If you're in a subdivision where the homes are stacked on top of each other, that's gonna be an issue for your neighbors. But if you're living in a neighborhood where, say, you're on 2 or 3 acre lots, and I don't think it's gonna be as much of a big of a deal, but I guess that's something we can cross as we go further down. I don't think a lot of people are doing that type of thing. I think it's either, most people are like me, they're renting them because they're going out of town. Like in my situation, I go back to Pittsburgh to see family members. And, or people are going on vacation. But I guess if you do hear about the whole party event thing, but, as long as that's able to get shut down, because, that's the last thing you wanna do is, be dealing with,
Yeah.
what do you call it, raves every weekend or something.
Yeah,
in
and of
your
course, property owners, if there is something egregious happening, they should contact 911 first. To, if it's violation of the noise ordinance or things like that.
I see no issue in putting that in there about the special events
I
and things
agree.
like that. Just for, like I said, I agree with you. Are they gonna do it right here in Hamilton Mill? Probably not. Those
Yeah.
homes are stacked so close to each other, you're probably not gonna see anything like that.
Yeah.
Because if you get some of the outlying areas where you've got some, especially these homes that have been built on like 1 or 2, 3 acre lots, and it's not saying you couldn't have a small wedding ceremony there, and it probably wouldn't be an issue, or something to that effect.
So they can
But-
still apply for a permit.
But they just have to go through
Yeah.
that, and that would be an approval
I think it's
process
good.
on whatever that process is. So I don't see no issue in adding that to this, just to say, if, for events or special uses. So that's what I recommend.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
The only reason I bring that up again, I don't know if that's gonna happen quite a bit, but of course, there's always reviews, and so again, this is all hypothetical, so just to say they do have a house and they have a special event, and they worried about it. Somebody, oh man, they did this, maybe we can do the same thing. Actually, you know, you got 15 different people over a year, and, you know, it's gonna kind of tick some neighbors off after a while, so again, but, you know, if it's on a larger piece of property, it's not gonna be an issue.
Any more questions? So, I have a couple, so, let's just say that somebody's doing short-term rentals now. Is there any grandfathering into somebody like that, or is it everyone in the city of Mulberry, you know, going forward, they would have to put it
so this would be effective, and it should count for existing short-term rentals.
Good.
You know, looking at it from the hotel motel tax standpoint, you know, none of these would have been granted either that we're aware of a permit. If they have a permit with Gwinnett County, which I don't believe Gwinnett County issues permits, there's nothing that tells me they do, but if for some reason they did, they could transfer it. But the idea would be to bring these existing properties into compliance so that the city is aware of the short-term rentals that are operating, and be able to treat them as the state allows us to as a taxable.
Can we find all those? I mean, is it possible to?
Yeah, so there are companies that essentially monitor all of the short-term rental websites. There's hundreds, more than just VRBO and Airbnb. And what they can do is knowing our geographic boundary, they can essentially monitor those. They would have a program that kind of scans them, identifies potential properties within the city, and they would give us a list of potential properties that are non-compliant, and then we could work to bring them into compliance. I don't know if that's what the city is going to choose to do, if that's the route they're gonna take. It may be that we just, you know, voluntarily elect, put out information that there is now a short-term rental ordinance and people need to come into compliance. You know, I don't know all of those details, but there's certainly methods.
And if somebody goes on Facebook and advertises, is that, you know, you just have to?
You know, I think you will find for the most part that people who are advertising are doing it on multiple sites. They'll have something listed on VRBO, they'll have something listed on Airbnb, so that they have a lot of different cross options.
Right.
I mean, you'll find hotels even are listing on some of these short,
Sure.
you know, these
Sure.
rental sites.
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna say there couldn't be instances where we don't find out one, you know, someone posted on Nextdoor, hey, I'm gonna be gone for the summer, anybody wanna take over my place?
Right.
You know, for
Mhm.
a couple weeks. But, you know, I think for the most part, we should be able to identify those non-compliant ones.
Well, I think with some of the, you know, things that this, you know, trying to do as a city with equestrian and stuff like that, I don't think short-term rentals are completely a bad thing. I think that the big thing is making sure that we're regulating and, you know, and that we have control of that and it doesn't get out of hand and, you know, especially in neighborhoods where you know, especially in a neighborhood where you've got other people living potentially beside somebody doing a short-term rental.
Yeah, so that is partially why we do have provisions that they would need to meet the parking requirements. You know, outdoor parking, it's already in the ordinance, but
Right.
outdoor parking shall be provided on a hard surface. There shall be no street parking on the streets or neighboring properties in the yard or in the right of way. And there are some limits on, you know, the number of occupants. That's
Mhm.
another way we can kind of prevent the party environment is 2 adults per
And those-
bedroom.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Okay, thank you. All right, so I will make a motion to close the planning commission comment section. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. So I think I can make a motion on this. I will make a motion to recommend approval to mayor and council an ordinance to adopt revisions for short-term rental requirements of the city's Unified Development Code, with a provision in there that any event other than just residential overnight stay would have to go through the
Okay.
special events
Okay.
process.
I have that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll now take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, pass 3 to 5. All right, so the next section is an ordinance to adopt build-to-rent ordinance in the city of Mulberry. I'll now ask staff to present staff analysis and recommendation.
All of the papers are probably shuffled.
There we go. So again, this is just kind of continued refinement of the Unified Development Ordinance, and as part of that, we are recommending that within your residential zoning districts, we add a provision about build-to-rent developments. Those have become increasingly popular over the past couple of years in that they are residential developments consisting of usually single-family detached dwellings or townhomes. And the way we are defining it is in which more than 10% of the units are constructed for the primary purpose of being leased rather than sold. And it's typically under a single ownership or management company. So this is a model that we've just seen increasingly. And so to kind of make sure that we can have some oversight on how these are developed, we are recommending adding this to your permitted uses and then providing these supplemental standards that you find. And in a lot of ways, some of them are, similar to what a short-term rental will be, giving the city oversight in how they are regulated, defining how parking is done, no exterior evidence that the dwelling is a build-to-rent community. It should operate as a single-family neighborhood. We do have some notification requirements. If there are more than 15 units, there has to be an on-site property manager or staff to help respond to issues within the community, because these would all be renters. The maintenance responsibilities would fall to the property manager. They still would have to be constructed and built to city architectural design standards. And we're also recommending that these still be platted essentially as a single family neighborhood. This isn't an ability to essentially have one large parcel with no individual lots on it and then a bunch of single family residences, whether attached or detached. They would still be required to be platted as individual lots, so that if for some reason the property management company or the owner chooses to sell in the future, that they could be sold to a single family ownership rather than under that one large parcel. They would have to meet all of the life safety. These are pretty standard. We're just making sure it's clear. And then there would be a formal licensing process as well, which is similar to your short-term rental ordinance, where they would have to submit an application. It would be valid for 12 months. And then, there'd be a renewal period. And so the reason why we have subsection J and subsection K is because we do want to provide the opportunity for individual property owners in an existing neighborhood to have a rental option, like a long-term rental on their property. And this just gives us some oversight in it. But then K would really be what's applicable to these larger developments, where it's the corporation needs to come in as a entity and get a business license. So individual single owners who are not a business entity would be able to do it just as a registration, whereas the larger developments would have to do it as a business license.
Now, is that gonna be per home, or is that, if they're, say there's 150 homes in one subdivision? So do they gotta register each home separately, or are they gonna be able to just register the entire?
So if it's a build-to-rent neighborhood that's been developed in that manner, it would be the entire property
Okay.
is registered. If it's, in an existing neighborhood and it starts exceeding that 10% threshold, that's earlier in the ordinance, it would be on the individual owners.
All right. All right, thank you. All right, so I will now make a motion to open to public comment. Do I have a second?
These papers tonight.
Just shuffle.
That's the
A
problem.
lot of them.
We'll
And
now,
I
we'll
took
now,
the agendas last time, what am I doing?
we'll now take a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, so we are now open to public comment for this amendment. Anyone? All right, anyone in opposition? No, sir. All right, no one, so I will now make a motion to close public comment for this item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Let's vote. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? All right, so 3-5. So I'll now make a motion to open to planning commission comments. Can I have a second?
Second.
Let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we're now open to planning commission comments.
I got my notes ready.
All right, go ahead, Joe.
Take a drink of water here. I'll try to make this as quick as possible, but I did make some notes on this. This is one of the ones that stuck out to me. For those who are watching online and also in the audience, I just wanted to let you know, I am a previous landlord, so I've been in business. I've thought about doing it again, so I'm not one of those people who's for nor against. I just want things to be regulated properly. So basically, I'm looking at all these new rental places that are going up there, or subdivisions. And I really started kind of thinking about it. And, we got quite a few of them just in the Mulberry area and surrounding areas. And again, some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. And I really started thinking about it. A lot of people don't want apartments, and it's pretty obvious, what their reasons are. But I started I really thought about this the last 48 hours. It's like, what is the true difference between a rental home community and apartments and reality? I mean, if you kind of think about it, sure, you have individual homes on properties versus people living in buildings. They both will typically have amenities. But at the same time, all your occupants are still people who are living in these places, whether they're homes or they're apartments, who are renters, and not necessarily that's a bad thing, but they don't have a big, add-on to our community. They're not here in our community as, trying to better things. They could be just transient or whatever. So, again, that doesn't make them good or bad people, but you're still drawing the same type of citizen into those situations. Typically, both are going to be owned by corporations or LLCs. You're going to have some situations where maybe a single owner owns them, but when we're talking a full subdivision of rental homes versus also, let's say, an apartment complex, they're typically owned by, again, a corporation or an LLC. Corporations and LLCs, as we all know, they're after profit. They don't want to lose money. They don't want to spend money. The least amount of money they can spend as possible, the better. So then it comes down to upkeep on these properties. So again, I started thinking about, your typical home. When you build a subdivision, and say you're selling individual owners, especially with an HOA, after so many years, your home starts to deteriorate. You have painting that comes up. You're eventually gonna have wood rot, depending on what materials are used. Windows at some point in time need to be replaced. Roofs, etc. Anybody who owns a home, you know what I'm talking about. These are things that need to be done. So again, my concern, if you drive around, whether it's the city of Atlanta, around Gwinnett County, you start looking at some of these apartment complexes, a lot of them are kept up, but a lot of them are not. A lot of them are in disarray. The same thing could happen with these rental communities. You can have a rental, again, an LLC or a corporation owns, say again, a plot of 150 homes. All these homes were developed, typically, and Chris will understand because Chris is involved in all this, and me and him have talked about this before. You develop the land, you get your sewage in, you get all your utilities in, get your roads in, you start building homes. When you're building to sell, most likely you're gonna build a few spec homes and you're gonna start selling those lots. Okay, so then people are gonna come in, they're gonna start buying them. In these situations where I'm noticing, When these builders are coming and build these rent-to-own communities, they're building. I mean, they got 20, 30 homes going up at one time. So we're typically, if this was a build-to-buy subdivision, this may take a year and a half to 2 years to even sell all the homes, let alone get them built. Where in these cases, a lot of these communities are going up in a year, sometimes a little bit more. Okay, with that being said, then you start thinking about maintenance costs. So here we got a bunch of, again, I'm gonna say 100 homes. We got 100 brand new homes, all rentals. First 4 or 5 years, most likely they're gonna be taken care of, especially if they got landscape companies coming in and cleaning these things up. But again, they're gonna start to weather, they're gonna start to age, paint's gonna start to fade, crack. Again, depending on materials, you're gonna start to have wood rot, you're gonna start having maintenance issues. So now all of a sudden, if you have an owner of 100 properties, or what do we got? We gotta make sure that they're gonna be willing to come in and actually, oh, we got 60, 70 units that are in disarray. Well, I'll clean up 10 of them right now, maybe 2 years from now, I'll do, a few more. So now all of a sudden you got a subdivision with decaying property. So again, that's my concern is, whether we have rules and how are we gonna regulate these things? And then you gotta think too, just to say, for example, John Smith LLC is the one that built this. They own this place, they own these 100 homes for 5 years, and then they sell it to Sue John LLC, who takes over the next, and takes over the entire community. But anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. Those were my concerns. Because again, you start getting a lot of these rental properties, if we don't have proper regulations in place and zoning, I know this has come down to code enforcement, but that's why I said, really, what is the difference between an apartment complex and a full rent-to-own home community as far as maintenance down the road? Because, you're talking 10, 15, 20 years, there's maintenance going to need to be done to these units.
Mhm.
And they can either stay very nice, or they can turn into really nasty communities after a while. Just like subdivisions that are not rental communities in the Gwinnett County area.
Oh, are you asking me?
No, I kind of just wanted to, I just wanted to get my opinion out there and publicly, for the council and for the city staff to think about, as we move forward with these.
So it does bring up a good question as far as like, typically with a subdivision that's for sale, you're gonna have a homeowner association. Is there regulations in the build to rent that they have to maintain some kind of association that you can go to for maintenance issues and you can go to for upkeep and?
Yes, sir. So that is why we've noted that subsection F, developments with more than 15 BTR units shall be required to have that on-site property manager and staff presence, and to ensure compliance with maintenance standards. So these communities would still be subject to other supplemental maintenance requirements within the existing ordinance.
So do we have standards in place that talk about the upkeep of buildings?
Where are those maintenance standards that are being referenced there? I mean, where are those at in our ordinances or whatever because, I live in a subdivision with HOA. I don't think Chris does, but I do. A lot of people don't like them.
Yeah.
But they're there for a reason. They're necessary evil because they help keep the community nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with, Joe, and we wanna make sure that whoever is developing these is gonna maintain them, because first 5, 6, years, nothing. But after that, you're gonna start having issues. So, and I like the section F there. I just be a little curious as to where these, they're gonna be held in compliance with maintenance standards. Where are those standards at in our ordinances, I guess?
Yeah, and I don't have that information right now, so what I could recommend you do is, if you do motion to recommend approval of this to city council, have staff provide the cross-reference, or give me a list of things that you want to make sure. I am uncertain if you've adopted the property maintenance regulations. I just haven't had enough.
Sure.
But that is one thing we could do, and so what you could ask is that I provide that cross-reference to city council, and if it's not a clearly defined set of standards, you could say we wanna make sure that there's responsibility for the exterior maintenance, which is pretty commonly in these, already in the ordinances when there are rental units, because, townhomes, it's typically guess, HOA for lack of a better word, you know, they are responsible for the exterior, they're usually responsible for the ground maintenance. So you could, make sure that we include those details in this ordinance.
Okay.
And I know some town-owned communities, they have HOAs in place.
Most of them,
Yeah, most
we
of them
do,
do,
yeah.
so, I mean, but I do think in those instances, it would be nice to see at least what those maintenance standards are.
Well, also, I think once we get, you know, I know we got code enforcement already established, and I'm hoping that we can get a very strong code enforcement in the city of Mulberry. I know that's what some citizens are concerned about is overreach, but, you know, I think our goal is to keep the city as nice and upkept as possible. So I would also assume with all these with the rental communities also, code enforcement's gonna be able to go in and handle same situations as they do with an individual homeowner. I think the only thing they may run into, again, if they're running into some multi-mega millionaire, you know, developer owns these, you know, they're gonna, of course, be a lawyer up and do what they need to do to, you know, so those would be concerns also. So, I mean, I think the stronger our laws or our rules are, you know,
Mhm.
the
So,
better off we're gonna be.
The joy of technology, I have just confirmed that you do have an adopted property maintenance ordinance, so we could, cross-reference
Okay.
that clearer here and just make that amendment.
You have any more questions? So, I've got a couple of things. You know, so when you talked about the 10%, you know, that, you mentioned that applies to, you know, like a corporation that comes in and build this. What happens in a neighborhood if you build a subdivision and you've got, because I know a lot of homeowner associations will address this, but, you know, what's to stop a neighborhood if the homeowner association doesn't have it in their covenants, that 90% of the people in that neighborhood couldn't individually rent their house out?
Yeah, so I mean, those will be case-by-case situations where, you know, we will have to kind of see, you know, what is happening. I think for the most part, those will be the exception.
Mhm.
You know, like you said, a lot of existing neighborhoods with covenants will have a limit on the amount of rentals that can be in there. And I think, you know, the intent is obviously for these larger developments to make sure we're regulating them. If there is a individual situation where we become aware that there is essentially a rental community of individual property owners, you know, we would, likely, we would bring them into compliance through the individual licensing requirement, and just work through code enforcement to become compliant. You know, I think there's always gonna kind of be exceptions,
Sure.
that we can't regulate out. You know, the same thing would be existing neighborhoods, what happens to the existing neighborhoods, and it would just be a case-by-case basis, looking at all of the details and how the proposed regulations apply.
And so if a developer comes in, they build 150 houses, or they're building 150 houses, sales aren't going good, and they decide that they're gonna go to build to rent, then they would that have to go back in front of planning commission and mayor and council to get that approved to
So-
change that from?
Right now, and I should have specified this in the original presentation, we are permitting the build-to-rent developments with limited, supplemental standards in the R100, R75, R60, RSR, and RTH, the townhome district. It's not allowed in RA200 or the RLL, the lower density. There is no like special use approval process or anything
So it
before
makes
council, so it's a
conditions.
by right, so it would put the responsibility on us as the city to have a code, you know, through code enforcement to monitor when that happens. I think we would probably become aware if a whole subdivision was
Right.
suddenly converting. I think there would be a lot of,
So one more thing on that, and you mentioned this, and I'm assuming that is they're individual lots. You cannot go in, and I think that's a pretty good way of doing it, because I've saw that a lot where, you know, you do one massive lot and then you've got 150 houses. Well,
what
you know, the
happens.
problem is you may not even meet, so am I assuming right that all of the for sale requirements on setbacks, on driveways, on every single thing
Yes.
applies to this the exact same as it was a single family for sale house?
Yes, they would meet whatever the minimum dimensional standards are for that zoning district. It would just still operate under single ownership, even though they're all, final platted as individual lots.
Okay. That's all I've got. Good?
Yeah. Questions are answered.
All right. So, if that's it from you guys, I will, make a motion to close the planning commission comment section. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll now vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so I think I can. So I will make a motion to recommend approval to mayor and council, an ordinance to adopt build-to-rent ordinance in the city of Mulberry, with the condition of that staff provides a cross-reference to the maintenance, standards, I guess, for the city?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll now vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? And the next agenda item is an ordinance to adopt revisions of the city unified development code to enable planning development district. So I will ask staff to present their staff analysis and recommendation.
Yes, so as you referenced, this is this ordinance would be to establish a planned unit development district. This is considered a special purpose zoning district, and they are typically included in ordinances to kind of accommodate development standards that don't necessarily fit into one of your traditional zoning classifications. Usually you see a mixture of mixed use uses on the site, so residential, either a mixture of residential, a mixture of commercial, and the way this ordinance is structured is it provides minimum standards for what would qualify. You know, you have a minimum acreage size of 10 acres. It has to be consistent with the other policy documents of the city. You know, it would require a traditional rezoning, so it would go before city council and you all for a recommendation, and you do have your discretionary power with that to say, you know, this either fits in with our vision or it doesn't. So item G provides the mixture of individual uses, so you have lodging, you have institutional office, that's page 38, retail sales and services. And then you also have these kind of 5 different areas beneath that mixture of uses for required characteristics to just kind of give additional guidance on if and where this would be appropriate. So if it's a new or unique concept or land use, if it's the goal is to preserve undeveloped or agricultural land, target employment or industry, increases the usable green space, provides tree preservation, and then also land leadership and energy efficient design, so that LEED classification, or it's an adaptive reuse project, taking an existing developed site and adapting it into a different use. So that kind of gives staff and the developers and applicants a kind of a criteria to see, does this project qualify? And it also gives staff the oversight to say, you know, it looks like you're just trying to propose your own standards so you can get a more dense development. You're not actually doing the true intent of what a planned development district is. And even though there are not a lot of base dimensional standards, we, you know, other than having 10 acres, we don't say there has to be this minimum lot size or these setbacks or those sorts of things. Their application process is significantly more intense than what a traditional rezoning would be. They have to have an overall master plan, show us a phasing plan, provide those regulatory, you know, a regulation plan, go through really detailed description of the site. So getting down to the streetscape and hardscape manuals and architectural pattern books. So the city itself is really getting a very clear understanding of what is being proposed and why it is different than your existing ordinance. And it should also exceed your existing ordinance. If it doesn't exceed your ordinance, why isn't it fitting into one of your traditional categories? So we'd wanna see something above your normal architectural standards. That's, why we have the lead options or preserving tree canopy. It should be unique and not something that you can just do under conventional zoning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now make a motion to open to public comment. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
We'll now vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, we are now open to public comment, for this, anyone? I will now make, since we don't have any, I will now ask for anyone opposed to. Anyone? All right, since we don't have anyone, I will now make a motion to close the public comment. Do I have a second?
Second.
I will now vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Public comment section is now closed. I will now make a motion to open to planning commission comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so we now have planning commission comments. Joe, comments?
Yeah, just a quick question. So I kind of pretty much understand where you're coming from. I'm kind of familiar with these type of developments. I know Milton has something very similar, because I know, because I've been in a few of them, where they do have residential and commercial, and they kind of makes that commercial development almost still look like, where it kind of fits into the neighborhood, gives it like, almost like a neighborhood city center. And I've also seen them up in, Raleigh, North Carolina has quite a few of these type of centers. If we were to do something like this, I mean, do we know, obviously we got 5 districts, there's not a whole lot of property left. I think most of the remaining property, well, I know some of them is in Commissioner Atkins' area. Mine, I'm not sure if there's much left in yours, but is there any areas that they're kind of considering this or proposing this, or is this for some developer to come and say, hey, this is what I think, this is what I'd like to do here?
Yeah, so this would be a developer proposal. The city isn't proposing to, if this is adopted, then go through and do a city initiated rezoning. This would come from developers. In a lot of cases, you may see it through annexations into the city, incorporation of that kind of adjacent land right outside of the current city limit. Or, if there are existing developments that maybe haven't moved forward and are not permitted, or in they've had the zoning from Gwinnett County, but it hasn't started the development process. There may be a new zoning that comes through to meet this ordinance. Situations may be where Gwinnett County approves something, but it's not compliant with our current regulations. So there may be some situations where there's adjustments to rezonings that have been done previously, because even though they're entitled under Gwinnett County, the permitting and vertical construction would be done based off of our ordinance. So there may be just some inconsistencies there. So this is kind of providing an opportunity for some unique situations and novel situations for the city.
Yeah.
Questions?
No, I mean, I think that was a good one.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have any specific areas zoned for, or rezoned for,
No.
the PUD, so, I mean.
No, if they're done right, I mean, it can be really nice.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to walk out your front door and, walk 2 minutes to a nice little center.
Swanee Town Center up there,
Yeah.
I mean, there's city halls right there, and they got restaurants, they got apartments above, I mean, those type of developments can be, if they're done correctly.
Well, and I think setting up till you can do it, but it gives us almost more control, because they have to submit so much information for us to look at,
Well,
so.
when you're talking about the site plans, the phasing plans of when things are gonna be complete.
It's pretty intensive.
Yeah, it's,
And the thing is, outside of the actual cities that are, now being developed in Gwinnett County, I mean, I don't think there's anything like that incorporated in Gwinnett County that I can think of. So we have, you got the city of Swanee, you got the city of Lilburn now, you got Duluth, I mean, those are all kind of, but, and that's, I know it's different, but again, I can't think of any other place that, you know, in the area that has anything like this right now.
So I've got a couple of questions. So when we talk about, you know, obviously when somebody's applying for a pub, they're, you know, it's different zoning conditions, so they're really kind of coming up with, as far as like architectural standards, do our architectural standards still apply as a minimum in there, or are they able to?
So let's see, an architectural pattern book demonstrating approved building materials, that has to be. So I don't think they have to use our ordinance as a base. There's nothing specifically in here that says that.
But they would
So to
have
the
to
extent of the
present
approved-
those materials and
Yeah, so they
exterior
have,
elevations.
yes, so as part of the overall development standards, they have to list the permitted and prohibited uses, density, impervious, open space, all of that and building massing. And then the development plan includes this architectural pattern book where they would get into, you know, the specifics. So when staff was doing an analysis of it for a staff report, we would use the existing ordinance as a base, most likely, and say, you know, this exceeds your minimum standards, or this, you know, meets them. But there is nothing explicitly that states it needs,
I just think as long
At
as
minimum.
it's presented and
yeah.
Plan Commission and council has the opportunity to just not let something come through. that's
Yeah,
not-
you should have a very clear understanding of what this development should look and feel like if it is approved, and it is a binding, so site plan specific and you know, application material specific district.
One thing I noticed in there was, and you mentioned it too, was that it's 10 acres or larger. I just sort of looked through some other municipalities and stuff within even Gwinnett County, and a lot of them are larger than that. A lot of them are like 15 or 20 acres. Is there a reason we went with 10 acres as opposed to?
I think it's just giving an opportunity to a larger base of properties. You know, typically in cities, you don't have, as you've referenced, a lot of large vacant tracts. So this allows for maybe the creative redevelopment of some commercial properties.
Sort of infill and
Yeah, infill opportunities. We tend to recommend that there be less stringent, you know, minimum standards, so that we do have the opportunity to see those unique situations.
I don't have any more.
I don't either. I don't have it. I don't think in the city of Mulberry, I don't think we do have any desolate commercial areas as of right now compared to other places in the county, which is not a bad thing, it's good, but it could happen.
All right. So thank you very much.
No problem.
All right, so I will now make a motion to close the planning commission comment portion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, I don't think, does anybody have anything that you want? I don't think there's anything we need to add to this one, at least that I.
No, I don't, this is something that we wait to see if something like this comes up, then we can deal with it at the time, and then we'll present to council.
So I will make a motion to recommend approval to mayor and council an ordinance to adapt revisions of the city's unified development code to enable planned development districts. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? 3 to 5. I think the last. An ordinance to adopt general amendments of the city's unified development code. I'll now ask staff to present staff analysis and recommendations.
Yes, so as you'll see, there are 3 different amendments we're proposing to the existing UDO. Exhibit A relates to driveway and curb cuts. This is really to clarify how access easements are utilized within the city. Typically, you see this in single-family situations where there's a parcel that's being subdivided, there's not enough road frontage, so they're proposing access via an access easement. What was in the existing regulations was a little vague, a little confusing, so staff went through and just clarified it and then added some more explicit standards related to the design and construction of those, including maintenance responsibilities. Because what we don't want to do is approve a common access drive via an access easement and then have life safety issues if a emergency vehicle cannot reach it because the road isn't in suitable conditions for passing. And so you'll see kind of through this, we took what the existing ordinance was, clarified the general requirements, we clarified the conditions under which an access easement is permissible, and then like I said, those design standards, giving kind of specifics as to having to meet existing standards elsewhere in the ordinance, and then where there are more than 2 dwellings, making sure the access easement is 20 feet in width, it's a paved surface, you know, and kind of just getting into those details. And then we also went through and looked at additional cross-references throughout the ordinance, so we weren't just addressing the access easement, we went through and tried to reconcile it through other code sections, so that's why you see the driveway section in there. 240-70, 1 and 2 were your existing ordinance, and then 3 was what we added to kind of really clearly identify what a common driveway was. And then we added in the minor subdivision ordinance how those common access drives apply, because we do want to make sure that when we are approving those, we aren't approving a full subdivision through a common access easement. That, you know, it could be a private road and have an access easement over it, but it needs to be an actual road. And so we clarified that, and then we also clarified in the final plating requirements when and how that applies. I'm happy to answer any questions related to any of these standards or go over more of them in detail. But we can save that for
I was gonna say,
discussion.
we'll-
Open the public comment.
We'll open the public first. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Alright, so I will now make a motion to open to public comment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alright, now vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Alright, so anyone that has any comments for this, now's your time. Alright, and since we have no one, anyone opposed? Alright, so no public comments, so I will make a motion to close the public comment section. Do I have a
Actually,
second?
you know what?
Okay,
I should have gone through all 3 because it's one large, so let's not take a vote to close the public comments and let me continue the presentation of the
Okay.
other 2 amendments so
Okay.
that we just capture those in this.
perfect.
Sorry about that. As I was looking at my motion sheet, I was like, there's something off here.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was kind of thinking to myself, I was like, wait a second here, with that B and C.
Yeah, you know,
Oh, right,
because it was,
yeah,
yeah, anyway, so amendment C relates to street curb cuts, and that's really just clarifying who the reviewing authority is. The current ordinance stated that the Gwinnett County Transportation Department would be reviewing any work within the right-of-way, so that meant if we had a right-of-way permit request for a utility installation that was in the, not within the actual paved street area, but in the additional right-of-way on the side, they would still have to go through Gwinnett County to seek that approval. So we just went in and clarified and said that if the road was being cut or there was a boring underneath the road that could impact the actual road surface, they would need to seek approval from the Gwinnett County Department of Transportation. Otherwise, staff can handle those right-of-way permits administratively. And then for Exhibit C, this is the Gwinnett County Department of Water Resources. It's their water main and sanitary sewer design and construction standards. And this came up because we had a situation where a grease trap needed to be installed in an area that was deviated from Gwinnett County standards. Gwinnett County requires them to be 20 feet away from the building. And in the commercial site that this was, that could not be accommodated just due to the site layout. And so they were having to seek a variance from Gwinnett County. You will find the language on page 113 of the packet, or 63 of this specific ordinance. And it says essentially the variance procedures to deviate from Gwinnett County standards, and if administrative approval, it can be granted administratively through the Gwinnett County Public Works Director or their designee. And then what we did is we just added a fourth subsection which says we adopt by reference any variances approved by either the Board of Commissioners or that director, so that we are making it very clear that if Gwinnett County grants that variance, that we recognize it and it stands for the city.
Okay.
Now, continue your public comment.
Public comments for any of these, A, B, or C? And any opposed? Right. So I will now make a motion to close the public comment section of this. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll now vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. I will now make a motion to open the comment to the planning commission. Have a second?
Second.
We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, comments? Questions?
I guess, so we're still, obviously, we're still a long ways away from taking a lot of control away from Gwinnett County. So I guess if it's something minor, we deal with it, but if it's gonna be some kind of major cuts or whatever, they're still gonna have to go through Gwinnett County. I guess we just gotta hope that they do what they gotta do.
Correct.
And that's kind of one of my questions. I mean, would there, reading through this, trying to grasp, would there ever be a circumstance where there would be a conflict between Gwinnett County, what we say and what Gwinnett? I mean, it sounds like that we're sort of adapting what they have with some additional language.
Yeah, so for the Common Access Drive, or the UDO in general was adapted from Gwinnett County. And, there will be future amendments and continual amendments as staff kind of works within the ordinance and we see where things may not work for the city. So the Common Access Drive is the one that we felt like really, as we start reviewing plats and going through that review process where we wanted a little more clarity and oversight. The other two are really just kind of clarifying procedures. We don't want right-of-way permits for utility installation to have to go through their Department of Transportation. So yeah, it's really to kind of streamline and just kind of clarify.
So what if, would there ever be a time where Gwinnett County, they would come back and have an issue with what we approved as far as it, utilities going in that way? I'm just thinking, would there ever be a conflict in that? That's all I'm trying to make sure.
Well, so right now, the roads are the cities, they are city right-of-ways.
Okay.
Gwinnett County I believe does the maintenance on
Right.
them. So, if we're not impacting what they would maintain, which will primarily be those roadways, there shouldn't be a whole lot of conflict that occurs. I think, in a case-by-case situation, if staff felt like there was going to be any conflicts or concerns, we could reach out and direct the applicants to the county for consideration. But really, there shouldn't be much work within the right-of-way that occurs. And then the last one for that modification to their sewer and water standards, this is really just letting us kind of take their actions and incorporate it. So other projects that, just to kind of back up to item B that could occur within the right-of-way would be like installation of sidewalks. and street curbs, if there's a small minor subdivision going in, not having to go through Gwinnett County to get approval for that sidewalk design.
And does this apply to GDOT also, or just
It's
county?
just Gwinnett County.
That's
If there's any work in the state right of way, it will have to.
It has to
That was the
go.
question.
That's what.
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yeah,
Um,
if it's on, it has to go through GDOT.
One minor thing I noticed on the single-family detached residential driveways, it says minimum depth driveway of 18 feet. Wouldn't that actually be what shouldn't match what we had in architectural standards?
Yeah, and I think you probably found a cross-reference where there was a conflict, so if you would like, we can, go in and amend that. So just in your motion, state, what driveway length should be there. And that way, cause I think it says,
I think we had some varied language depending on the size of lot. and
Yeah,
stuff.
so you
it
could
just-
just
It
say-
should match,
yeah,
Whatever zoning.
yeah, it should match the architectural standards.
Yeah.
It definitely
and that would
was.
be 24072B.
Correct, yes.
Okay. That is something easy, and if you can just mention it
I'll
in your
make that
motion.
motion. Any other questions, comments?
You actually asked the question I was gonna ask.
If that's it, I will make a motion to close the planning commission comment section. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Right, so that brings us to a motion. Alright, so I will now make a motion to recommend approval to mayor and council an ordinance to adopt general amendments to the city's unified development code. With the clarification of 240-70.2B, the 18 feet depth on the driveway would match the architectural standards that has been approved by the city of Mulberry.
Got it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Alright, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Alright, so that brings us to adjournment. Commissioners, that concludes the business of this meeting. I will now make a motion to close the planning commission meeting for tonight. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alright, I will now take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Alright, so that concludes the planning commission meeting for tonight. Thank you all for being here
Thank you.
and bearing with my first time of doing this.
Yeah.
I had a couple of little